Hey guys, Aaron from Golf Custom here. I've been looking for a new way to fasten the handles onto the tangs of my knives. To date I've been using peened pins and epoxy in combination. Unfortunately, this process of doing the peened pins while the epoxy is still wet is kind of messy and also kind of stressful. And the peening process has been giving me some issues by sometimes discoloring the G10 around the handle pins. So I've been on a search for a better way of attaching the handles to my knives. It has to be as strong as the pins, which is the problem. Pins are very, very strong. So the best candidate that I've found so far are these tiny little Corby Bolts, which are basically a miniature two-part fastener that screws together and meets in the middle of the handle. Before I can use these on my knives though, I have to test that they are strong enough. So to do that, I've put together a rough test blade made from scrap parts that I had around the shop. It's an 01 blade and some G10 handles. The handles are held on with a combination of West Systems epoxy and 3 of the Corby bolts. Basically what we're going to do is put the knife blade in a vise and then break the blade using the handle. And if the handle stays mostly intact or completely intact, then it will have passed the test.
So here's the knife after the test. As you can see here, the scales have separated from the tang just a little bit near the ricasso. Now that's actually pretty good given what I just did to this blade. What I've seen in the past from peened pins is actually not as good as this, and my guess is that that's because the ends of a peened pin are like a cone, which I think lets them pull through the G10 more effectively than the stepped shoulder that's on these fasteners. So overall I'm very happy with that. They perform very well.
So I've also had a number of people ask me why I don't use just epoxy. Now I've done some testing around this in the past and I know my feelings about this, but I didn't take any videos of that test, so I wanted to do another round of testing today so I could show you. To do that, I've got another blade here, which is again made from a scrap 01 blade, and in this case laminated handle made of G10 and micato. And this has been glued onto the tang of the knife using good quality West Systems epoxy that was actually wet sanded into the tang and into the scales in order to increase the bond strength. So as far as an epoxy only handle goes, this should be a pretty strong handle. And I'm going to do the exact same test. I'm going to put the blade in a vise and start bending the blade using the handle, and we'll see how the epoxy by itself holds up.
So here you can see the epoxy only knife after that test. The epoxy actually did very well this time. Last time I tried this, the epoxy started cracking here at the ricasso and then it just ran all the way down the scale and the scale popped right off before there was any damage to the blade. So clearly wet sanding the epoxy into the tang and into the scales very much helps. That being said, I still don't want to rely on epoxy as my only mechanism for fastening the scales to the tang. I want my knives to be out in the field and be able to be relied on 100%, so I'm going to double up, as I have been, with both mechanical fasteners and the epoxy. You know, but by the looks of it, you probably could get away with it for a light-duty knife, which kind of surprises me, to be honest. So, always fun to learn something new.
So I'm pleasantly surprised with the results of that test. The Corby fasteners are actually very strong. It looks like, for all intents and purposes, they're actually stronger than the peened pins that I was using previously. So that's great. An upgrade in performance, and it makes the knives easier to assemble, which is kind of a double win. I'm also impressed and very surprised at the performance of the epoxy just by itself when it's wet sanded. As I said, I've tried that in the past without wet sanding, mind you, and the performance wasn't very good at all. It actually separated from the scales quite easily. So if you are looking for an easy way to attach the handle scales to a knife, then epoxy and wet sanding, good quality epoxy mind you, might well be viable if it's a light duty knife. I would avoid it if you're using wood for the handles, because the wood will expand and contract and gradually break the bond of the adhesive. But if you're using all synthetic materials, it might well be viable. I'd want to do a bit more testing in terms of exposure to weather before I relied on it, but it looks like it might be a viable option. Hope you guys enjoyed the video.